Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. You guys are probably going to build video. It is a build video. It's a video that's going to show you guys how you can create your own custom build, your own custom playstyle, your own custom character, and it will work in all content. This doesn't mean that it will just work in Overland or it'll just work in dungeons or it'll just work in trials. It will work in all content. This includes PvE, PvP, dungeons, trials, you name it. It'll work in all content of the game. One of the things that I've learned from being a builder or a content creator and making builds themselves is there's a value to everything. And in order to be able to play the game at its most difficult level or difficult content, your character has to reach certain values in attributes, as in their stats, as seen here on the character screen. So like your magicka has to reach a certain value if you're going to be a magicka based character. Your stamina has to reach a certain value if you're going to be a stamina based character. Your health has to reach a certain value if you're going to be a tank character. And I get asked this all the time. Sherman, how do you know your builds work? Well, I'm going to show you guys this formula. And this formula is called 2032. As you guys can see there in the name. 2032 means that you're trying to get as close as you can to those values. 20 in certain things, 32 in other things. Now, depending on what you're playing, if you're playing a tank, a healer, a damage dealer, 2032 plays in the different attributes different ways. So if you're playing a healer, you're going to want to build into magicka or stamina, depending on what kind of healer you're trying to be. Because now that with a lot of the changes they've made to the game, you can be a healer that's a hybrid healer that's stamina magicka, or a stamina healer if you're playing a warden purely. You can also be a magicka healer, and you can be a hybrid healer. So that you got your magicka healer, you got your hybrid healer, and you got your stamina healer. Now a lot of people are going to say, well, can you play like a tank healer? You can, but the thing is that anytime you pick a role to play, you sacrifice being something else. So if you choose you want to be a healer but also tank at the same time, you're sacrificing your ability to be a healer to tank. You want to be a damage dealer, but not a healer, you got to sacrifice your ability to be a damage dealer, or you're a healer to be a damage dealer. And it doesn't mean that you're sacrificing your stats. You're sacrificing your setup, your character build, to be more of something else than guaranteed into something that you want to be. Like we're gonna make this character into a healer. So let's go ahead and do that. What would be the most obvious sets for a healer to use? Okay. Most obvious sets most healers run are Jorvolds and Olorum. Now in this one, we're not going to use both together. We're going to use them opposite because I want this character to also be capable of doing damage. Now a lot of people are going to be like, why do you want a character that can do damage and heal at the same time? I don't want them to do damage and heal at the same time. I want them to have the ability to be versatile. So that means if I'm playing by myself, I can do damage while I'm playing in quests, delves, public dungeons, or fighting world bosses, or I'm out in the world farming. Or if I'm playing in a dungeon group on a lower difficulty where I don't need to be so aggressive with healing, I can sacrifice some of my healing to be more aggressive with DPS. There's a lot of different things that you can do to compensate for that. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to actually grab the Olorum set. So I am on PTS, and just to let you guys know, PTS has an option in it that allows you to create a character at max level. When you do that, it gives you all these boxes that allow you to have all the different tools necessary to create a character capable of any content. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open my consumables box. This is going to give me food, it's going to give me enchants, It's going to give me potions, stuff I need for different things. Now I'm going to go into my trial sets, and we're going to grab the light trial sets because we're going to grab Olarum. Alright, so we're going to grab the Olarum set. Now, we can either grab the perfected Olarum set, which would be somebody who's more geared towards actual playing trials in their most difficult, hardest mode. So we're going to do that. We're going to grab the perfected. And then we're going to grab another set. Now, this other set, we can take False God's Devotion, perfected or imperfect. This would give us a DPS type set. But I don't want to use a set. I don't want my character to be more focused towards DPS. I want them to be focused towards being group support, healing, offering those kind of things. So this wouldn't be the greatest option. Another set I could use, and it's one that a lot of healers will use at the end game, is Infallible Mage, or they will use Wise Mage. One of the two. Now, Wise Mage is a little bit easier to get, I'm not going to lie. It gives you the same, basically the same thing as Infallible Mage, except that instead, Infallible Mage gives you Minor Slayer. So this will give you 5% more damage to dungeon and trial mobs. So this will make you have better DPS in dungeons and trials if you want a little bit more DPS, but it also still gives you that higher crit chance, that higher spell damage for when you're playing in Overland and you're playing in Delves and you're playing the public dungeons, you're playing world bosses, you're farming gear, you're farming resources, you're farming sets in normal dungeons or even veteran dungeons or veteran trials. This will give you that capability to play more effectively in that route. So those are some options, but we're not going to use these actually. We're actually going to use a dungeon drop set instead. And the reason I'm using this dungeon drop set is because it will give me a little bit more group support. So the dungeon set we're going to be using isn't going to be Sanctuary. It's actually something that I like to use because it does give you that DPS kind of sense with the higher crit. It also gives you some extra max magicka, as you guys can see, and it will, whenever you heal, critically heal yourself or an ally, you grant that person a damage shield that absorbs X amount of damage, and that effect can occur every 6 seconds. So this is actually a really good support set, even though a lot of people don't like to use it. So our first set that we chose was the Olarum set. So we're going to go down here and get the perfected Olarum vestments. We're going to actually not touch the armor itself. We're going to go with the weapons and jewelry here. And the weapons and jewelry are going to give us a good starting point for our character, because we're going to use the jewelry and the weapons, and we're going to use 2 different types of weapons here. We're going to actually grab 2 different types of staffs. Now, a lot of people, when they run this kind of a setup, they'll run something like a lightning staff and a restoration staff. Since we're a Dragon Knight, though, I'm actually going to run an Inferno staff with a restoration staff. The reason I'm running an Inferno staff is because Dragon Knights have an affinity towards fire-based damage. They don't get increased fire damage, they get increased fire element stuff within their class persona. So having that fire mixed with it really helps. So we're gonna do that. Now, the other thing you can do is you can get like master weapons, you can get master weapons, any arena type weapons you can use. So these are called ability altering weapons, and you can use these if you want, like Master, Asylum, Black Rose, the Maelstrom stuff. You can get these and use them on these builds. But you can only use one at a time, because otherwise you're going to have a 2-piece set, a 5-piece set, a 3-piece set, and then this other set. And if you're going to do it a combination like that, it's better to go with something like Olarum. There's a set that you can get that increase your max magicka by 4%. It's a 3-piece jewelry set, but it's not agility, endurance, and willpower. It's another set that drops in the game, and it's pretty good. So, and then there's Wrath of the Imperium, which is a good set. It gives you a thing of crit, gives you spell damage, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different options. that you can go with if you want to use like a Master Maelstrom combo with a 3-piece jewelry set along with like Oloran. Alright, so now we're going to grab our light dungeon set, the combat physician, if I can find it. Right there. We're going to grab the robes, the boots, the gloves, the leggings, and the belt. Because we don't want the helm and shoulders. We're going to actually use a monster set in that place. Alright. So now that we got that out of the way, now what we're going to do is we're going to grab a monster set. Now there's a few choices here that a lot of healers use for this. Chokethorn is one. It's a very good one. If you're looking for more, I like to use this more on wardens because I feel like it really represents the warden. Or if I'm playing something that I feel is like more druidic, I will use Chokethorn. You can use things like Sentinels is a good one too. I like to use this on stamina healers because of the fact that it gives stamina back, and you're going to already be up front anyways being a stamina healer. You're not going to be standing at a distance using a bow to heal people. You're going to be standing up with the group using things like Vigor, Circle of Protection, and maybe some of your class heals, but primarily you're going to want to stick to something there. So Earthgore is another one a lot of people like to use at, I wouldn't say in-game, but they do like to use it. Troll King's another one some people do like to use. But the one we're going to go with is Bogdan's. Bogdan's has been a really popular one, especially with the new changes to it. So we're going to grab Bogdan's Night Flame set. And we're going to grab this in heavy and medium shoulders. Now we're going to have the 5-piece combination of 5 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy. And this is what we call a 5-piece combo. So if you use 5 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy, you get the Undaunted passives at the maximum. That means you're going to get 6% max health, stamina, and magicka from wearing those 3 types of armor. So it's really, really important to make sure that you wear this setup in this kind of combination. Now, you guys are probably wondering, what does he mean by this stat thing? So first things first, I'm going to also grab some potions. We're going to grab some tripods. We're going to grab some spell power pots, and then we're going to grab some food. And we're going to grab 2 types of food here as well. We're going to grab the longfin pasty and melon sauce. That's a tri-stat food. And then we're going to grab the Witch Mother's Potent Brew. You can use something like I wouldn't use any of this stuff down here that gives you really high recovery. And I really wouldn't use the Mara's. Not because Mara's is bad, the Bloody Mara. It's really powerful. And it lasts for 2 hours. The problem with it is that it's geared more towards using vampires. So, because that's what the food is made for, is more towards the vampire type. And we're not going to be a vampire. So, now that we got our food and potion set up, we're going to go ahead and put these on our bar, on our quick bar to use. All right. So going back now in here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at where our stat pools are right now, and then we're going to do our skills. So I'm going to go ahead and unlock all of our necessary skills for this. So we're going to start in crafting, because I always start at the bottom, work my way up. Alright, alchemy. Now, a lot of people wonder, like, why did you choose a Khajiit for this? I just picked a race. I let it pick the race for me, kind of, when it chose, because it really doesn't matter. Being a healer, you could be any race. You don't have to be a specific race. Some races do play better healers, like Bretons play really powerful healers. Argonians play really powerful healers. High Elves play really powerful healers. Dark Elves can be really powerful healers. But any race can heal, tank, and do damage, whether it's magicka or stamina. And we'll get to that when I get to the attributes and the stats. Excuse me. So I've got my racials. Now we're going to unlock some of these, because we will use these depending on what kind of setup we're going for. And it's just a habit of mine now to unlock a lot of these different ones. So I have access to different abilities. So, Energy orb. And you guys are probably wondering, why are you unlocking tanking stuff and all this other crap that your character will never use? Because you never know. Honestly, you will never know if it's something you're going to use or not. It's better to be, I like to say, be prepared than to be going, am I going to need this? You know? So, Min Spirit's a great ability to have, especially if you're playing with some new players that don't understand the content of certain things. It can be a great way to keep them alive. And I'm gonna actually go with Degeneration here, and then we're gonna go with Volcanic Ruin. We are gonna go with Balance because it's a great thing to use for tanking. Even though I'm in light armor, a lot of people will say, well, you can't tank in light armor. You can tank in any armor you want. That's kind of my point here. This is what this is going to show you, is like you can do any role any way you want, as long as you can meet the requirements of playing that role in the game's design. So, I'm going to go with Harness Magicka. Now, another thing, and people are going to wonder, why did you choose Dragon Knight for healer? Any class can be a healer. I just prefer the Dragon Knight because that's what I play on live. Okay, and it's just that I play this on live, so this is what I'm going to use for this design. Now we're going to go in here. We're going to unlock Destruction Staff. And I'm going to choose the ones that are going to be really like more support based and things like that. So. Oh, I took the wrong one there. I'll have to fix that real quick. Give me a sec. Again, one of the big things about making sure you grab the right skills is knowing how skills work. And I grabbed the wrong one for this. I should have grabbed this one because this applies Minor Mangle, which lowers people's health by 10%, and it works in PvE and PvP. So, Resto Staff. The nice thing about playing a Dragon Knight healer is they get a lot of really cool things that allow for some much better. Is it mutagen or radiant heals 2? Yeah, I love that one. Combat Prayer, and then we're gonna go with Ward Ally because I like using shields. I like the Siphon Spirit because it does put Minor Magicka Steal and the other one, Life Steal, on them, so you can choose which ones you want to use there. If I'm playing more damage dealing, I'm going to want some damage dealing type stuff. So I have damage dealing abilities. I'll be use Unrelenting Grip, and we are going to go with Carterize because we are a healer. And like I said, unlock everything. Everything that you can use in your character to give you a very powerful setup is what you're going to really want to do here. And that's because you're playing not just a tank, but you're also playing a character who can do other things. You're not just a healer. You have the ability to be a healer, but it's good to make sure that you're also capable of other things. So now up here I'm going to grab the fire one, Magma Shell. We're also going to grab the Obsidian Shard. This has a really powerful heal on it. This one we're actually going to grab Molten Armaments. This is going to give us increased heavy attack damage. So, and grab Fragmented Shield. Don't use the Igneous Shield. This is more tank related. This is more support related. And then this one I like to use Shattering Rocks. And then with this I like to use the Cinderstorm. So now that I've got all my skills chose, and that done, we're going to go ahead and do champion points as well. Now we're a Dragon Knight, so we get extra resistances, so we're going to actually put 38 in here. We're going to put everything else. And a lot of people are going to ask again, why do you use this same setup? This is just a universal setup, okay? There's a lot of different CP setups that you can use for different instances, or you can just use this when you're an overland. And this is what I use most of the time anyways, so it gives me a really good balance. And yes, I did do that. Now, a lot of people say it's better to put like 56 points in here, or 100. It really comes down to the player, but most of the time you don't have to do that. There's other things you can do. So I like to do this, or I'll do this here. And I'll show you guys here in a second what else I do, so you guys can see. So this gives me a little bit more spell precision and stuff, so I can do a little bit more damage. So now that we've done that, now you guys can see our stats are kind of more equalized now, and we don't even have food going. So if I were to put food on, let's say Witch Mother's Potent Brew, I go to 17k health, I have 25k max magicka. Now we're going to finish this off. We're going to actually go in and fix a few things here. So we're going to do our attribute points. We're going to put everything into magicka. Okay. And then we're going to start setting up our skill lines. So because we are a Dragon Knight, you don't need to use Inner Light as a healer, because this is going to give you spell crit and stuff like that. It does help to have that. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on both bars so I have a higher magicka pool. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through the rest of this. I'm going to go over here to the Earthen Heart. I'm going to grab Magma Shell and put that here. This is going to be a really great for group support. We're going to leave Warhorn on the front bar, but I'm going to remove the rest of these. And we're going to grab a few other things here. So I'm going to grab Cinderstorm. Cinderstorm is going to be on our front bar. And this is going to be, on our back bar where Resto Staff is. That's going to be one of our primary heals. This is going to go along with a few other things here. So on the back bar, we're going to be using Restoration Staff. And we're not going to use Healing Springs. We're actually going to use Rapid Regeneration, or Radiating Regeneration, Combat Prayer, and Ward Ally. These are all the ones we're going to use on the back bar. Now on the front bar, we're going to use Destruction Staff stuff. And we're going to actually put Elemental Drain on here, but we're also going to put Wall of Elements and Crushing Shock. Now you guys are going to say, well, what about another heal or something like that? We're going to put Carterize also. So this way, when we're playing in a group, we have a group support ability, we have a damage overtime ability, which is also going to be some group support, because burning enemies take 20% more damage. We're going to be able to apply burning a lot easier because we're a Dragon Knight. We have Carterize for an AoE group heal kind of thing. On the back bar, we have Cinderstorm. This is a great heal over time. Then we have Radiating Regeneration. This is a great heal. We also have the Combat Prayer, which is a great burst heal. And then we have our Ward Ally. The thing you have to understand about playing certain classes, certain setups, is you want a good heal no matter what. So the other thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the Atronach Mundstone. This is going to give us really good mag recovery, but we're not going to build just for mag recovery, guys. So now we're going to look at this again, and you can see we have 36k max magic. We have a 2775 mag recovery. We don't need that much. And remember what I said about making the character work in all areas of the game. So we're going to go into jewelry here, and we're going to grab 1 mag recovery, and we're going to grab 2 magical harm. Now, why am I grabbing magical harm? I'm a healer, because you want that capability to still do damage even when you're not a damage dealer. So you still get that higher damage potential, and you get a really good mag recovery. This is unbuffed, so this is with the dubious or the Witchmother's Potent Brew. Now we could leave our stats as is and still play dungeons, trials, all that stuff, and still be really powerful. We can still do end game content with this setup. I mean, we're talking dungeons, trials, PvP, you name it, you could still do it with this. But we want to change our traits and stuff around on our armor and everything. So I'm going to go in here. We're going to change our traits to our staff, our Inferno staff on the front bar, to a you can either go sharpened, you can go decisive, you can go infused, you can even go charged if you want, so you can get a guaranteed apply status effect. That's one we're going to use there. And then on the back bar, we're actually going to use infused. Okay, and I'll get to the reasons why in a minute. So the reason we're using charged on the front bar is because we're going to have a shock enchant. So now moving on to the rest of the gear, our monster set and our body pieces. We're going to change those as well. So with our monster set, I'm going to go reinforced on the helm because I want higher resistance values. And then on my smaller pieces here, I'm actually going to go with the invigorating. Now the reason why is because I need all the recovery that I can get so I can stay in resources really well. So for being a healer, invigorating is going to be I don't want to say a better option, but it's definitely going to help in the long run. So I always do things a little over so I can make sure I have enough. So, and then we're going to change the jewelry enchants. Now jewelry, if you don't have the if you don't have transmutation to do this, just leave the jewelry as is. It'll work fine. Okay. But if you can change it, I would suggest changing it. We're going to change the necklace to infused. This is going to give you more mag recovery. And then these two, we're going to change to Trirune. Now, the reason I like using Trirune is because this gives me a little bit more stamina for dodge rolling, stamina blocking, breaking free, things like that. So, all right, now we're going to go into our body enchantments, and we're going to change those as well. So we're going to change our armor enchantments. And you have options here that you can use. So I'm going to grab one Magicka because I'm going to be changing out my shoulders, which has a stamina enchant, and then we're going to grab 3 of these. So I'm going to go with this enchant. We're going to put this to Magicka, and then I'm going to do these tri-stats. Now the reason we're using the prismatic enchant here is, again, to give us Magicka, health, stamina, but also it gives us a better resource pool for stamina, health, and Magicka. Our Magicka does drop a little bit, but we don't need a lot of Magicka to heal. We need good recovery to heal and sustain and do all that other stuff. So, as you can see, our mag recovery is coming in at 2411 now, and we haven't really done anything. So, we're going to go now into the weapon enchants. We're going to put a few weapon enchants on here, like I said. One we're going to go with is a shock enchant. And then on the back bar, we're actually going to go with a weakening enchant. And the reason you're going to go with weakening is so you can actually help out the group by weakening the enemies and putting lower damage output on them. When you do your heavy attacks, you're going to do most of your heavy attacks on the back bars, so you can get that weakening enchant on there. But you can also get more resources back if you need them. Now, you shouldn't need very many resources with a 2411 recovery. And then, of course, on the front bar, you have the shock damage enchant. So, and that is on a charged enchant, charged staff. So this will guarantee put concussed on the enemy. All right, now that we've done that, we've got the whole build done. But where are you talking about this 2032 thing, Sherman? I don't see it. And that's fine. You don't have to see it right away. So I'm going to show you guys what I mean by 2032. All right. Let me go ahead and get my potion here ready. We're going to activate our potion. Now we're going to do the 2032 thing. 34k Magicka, almost 20k health, 2,000 or 20 in the weapon damage, and then we have a 46% critical. Now this is unbuffed, so we don't need a super high critical on a healer to be a healer. You just need to have good healing capability. We have a 2765 mag recovery. Anytime you're playing something that requires a lot of recovery, it's best to build for 2,000 or more, or 20 or more, is what I like to say. So this is what 2032 stands for. 32,000, 20,000. Okay? Your primary stat for whatever you're playing, whether you're being a stamina DPS, a magic DPS, a healer, a tank, you want your primary stat to be 32,000 or higher. So if you're playing a tank, it's best to build for 32,000 health or higher. The reason for that is so that way you have a health pool big enough to absorb a lot of damage. A tank doesn't need a high weapon or spell damage, but a 2k weapon damage or spell damage is going to make you more than viable to play the overland content in dealing damage. And that's the purpose here. Remember, you're not building to be a DPS. You're building to play a role. Now, if you build to be a damage dealer, it's better to build for 3,200 spell damage or weapon damage or higher. That is unbuffed. The reason for that is that way you get that greater damage potential. Now, playing a magic person, it's really hard to get the 3,200 spell damage without using certain sets to benefit that. So like Scathing Mage or something that gives you a lot of spell damage. Weapon damage is easier to reach in medium armor, so doing that again is doing that. You have to build into it. Now, people will say hybrids don't work. Hybrids do work. And hybrids work in a very similar fashion to this. Depending on what kind of a hybrid character you're making, if you're making a light armor hybrid, a medium armor hybrid, or a heavy armor hybrid. If you're playing a heavy armor hybrid, you're going to build more for survivability. And you're not going to worry so much about your DPS. Now, you can build for high DPS in heavy armor because there's sets out there that allow that. But pretty much this is what the 2032 stands for, is you're gonna build for 2032 in things. Now, what do I mean by the other things of 2032 besides the recovery? And you don't have to build for weapon, like recovery like this for stamina DPS, because your recovery, you're gonna get resources from other things, but it's still good to build for a high recovery, even on a DPS. But you don't have to build for as much. You're not going for 3k, 4k, that kind of stuff. The only ones you build for 2k are healers, pretty much. When it comes to resources, though, the 2032. Now, this is an in-game setup, okay? This is a build you could use it in-game. I could even go get a master staff and put it on my bar, and it won't change these values. It won't change these values by much. And why won't it change these values? Because the game won't. It doesn't need to. It doesn't need to change that. So the other thing that you have to understand is, like, what if I'm playing alone and I use certain abilities that give me increased spell damage? Now I've got I've got 2k already, and then if I use my potion, I go to 23 something. So I've still got a weight that I can keep up my DPS, so I can still do stuff. I'm not gonna, like I said, you're not gonna do insane damage. But you can do enough damage to get by, get through content, and stuff like that. Like, this is me set up as a healer. If I wanted to set up as a damage dealer, I can go in and use skills that can make me more of a DPS. I can use Molten Whips, I can use Burning Embers, I can use Engulfing Flames as my more DPS-centric type setups. So, see, you can set your character to be a DPS even as a healer. You're just not going to be high DPS. You'd have to change your whole entire build to be really high DPS. And that's the thing a lot of people don't want to do. They don't want to have to change their build to play different things. But if you set up a build similar to this, to where you have a decent crit rate, decent spell damage, you're going to get a decent build that can play in overland content just fine. You're going to be able to do delves, all the quests in the game. You're going to be able to do public dungeons. And while you're doing this, you can still run somewhat of a healer for yourself, or even for other people you're grouped with, or if you run into other people doing content, you can still do more of that healer hybrid DPS. Because Overland doesn't require you to be a super DPS, super healer. And just like if you're playing in a trial, if you're playing in a normal trial to help somebody farm some gear, you don't need to worry about being a super healer. You need to worry more about being more damage orientated, because then you can focus on doing DPS and healing at the same time, but you can still help the group because you still have those sets. You have Olarum, you have the Weakening enchant on the back bar, you have the Shock enchant with the charged weapon on the front bar. You do have this here with the combat position, which can help allies in dungeons or Overland or wherever, and it's whatever you critically heal an ally when you're in combat that you get this stuff. So it's like, hey, I can get this really cool heal in combat because of this, you know? And that shield is going to help me out. It's going to help my allies out because it's going to give us a 10k shield that we can use to mitigate damage. So it's kind of like I've got these options. But that's the whole point here, guys, is it's just to show you, like, there is options out there besides the meta, okay? The meta's great if you're doing score runs. If you're running to be very aggressive and you're running to get really high scores or speed clears of dungeons and trials, it's great to do that. But if you're playing in just a casual group or guild, you don't need that kind of stuff. If you're playing in a role-playing guild, you don't need that kind of stuff. You can build a character that's built just like this, has 32,000 or higher in their primary stat, 32,000, 20k health, and if you're playing a tank, having a 32,000 or higher health with a 20k stamina or magicka, depending on what kind of tank you're being. If you're a magicka tank that's using a lightning staff or an ice staff, or if you're playing a sword and board tank or even a two-handed tank or anything like that, there's a lot of different options there. Like when I play a two-handed tank, I will build for 32,000 in health and 28k in stamina. The reason for that is because two-handed tanking is different than sword and shield tanking. Just like ice staff tanking is different than sword and board tanking. Lightning staff tanking, bow tanking, you name the kind of tanking, it's different for every weapon type. So you got to use a combination of different things, just like you do with sword and shield and staff. You know, you have to use the tools that are going to get you to be the role you need to be, and you have to use the tools to be the role you need to be. So there's a lot of different options when it comes to gear, traits, Mundus stones, enchants, and all that you can use to maximize your character. See, there's what a lot of people don't realize is min-maxing stats is easy. Min-maxing sets with the build or the role you're playing is the more complicated part, because you want your character to be able to do certain things because you design them to play a certain way. Like, a lot of people think that tanks in this game have to be buffers and debuffers. Their job isn't technically to be a buffer debuffer. Their job is to be a crowd control specialist. That's their job. Their job is to control the movement of enemies and to absorb damage. That's their job by design structure. The people made them the buffers debuffers because they could never get enough damage out of their characters to make them worthwhile. Because you're using a sword and shield, your damage is going to be low because your sword and shield is more of a defensive weapon than it is an offensive weapon. It doesn't mean it can't be used for offense, it's made for defense. Just like an ice staff is made for defense more than offense. Fire staff and lightning staff are made for offense. Two-handed is made for offense. Dual wield is made for offense. So when you tank with other weapons besides sword and shield and ice staff, you have to build more offensively. And they make better off tanks than main tanks using those tools. So like when it comes to trials, you can't tank a trial like main tank a trial with a two-handed sword and a bow, but you can off tank with a two-handed sword and bow. You can main tank with a ice staff or sword and shield. And that's the big difference here. Main tanks will use a sword and shield and a off weapon, while an off tank will use more offensive stuff. And they don't use it necessarily to be more offensive. Sometimes they use it to be more defensive. Like you take two-handed, for example, using Brawler to give yourself another damage shield. Use along with another damage shield, along with another damage shield. You can stack damage shields all day long and you won't take any damage. And that's something that you can do as any class in this game because you have the tools to do that. And this is where this is where 2032 really plays into the game really well, is knowing the max stat values that our characters can build to and then building to that. Now, Khajiit wasn't the best option for this. Like I said, if I was something that had more magicka, I'd have a 35k, 36k, depending on the race, depending on the benefits that I'd get from different passives and stuff, plus, you know, how much that race gives me. I could have 36k magicka with a 19k health, or even a 20k health if I was an Argonian. So the thing you have to know is how races apply to you. Now, if I was playing something other than a Khajiit, or a magicka-based race, let's say I was playing a Wood Elf healer, it's magicka healer, can I still do that? Yes. Because I can still build a 32k higher or higher magicka. That's the thing you have to understand, is if you can build a 32,000, you can play the content. Are you going to be super min-maxed for in-game trial runs? You're as min-maxed as you can possibly be because the game only allows for you to get so high in stats no matter what race you're playing. And you'll see people with like 40k magicka as a healer, and it makes me wonder, why do you need so much magicka when you don't need that much to heal any of the content in this game? You'll never use that much. So, again, it comes down to knowing the game, knowing the rules, knowing and understanding how the stat system works in the game, and how you can take advantage of every aspect of your character so you can play in multiple different content areas of the game. So, but that's pretty much it. That's the whole concept here of 2032, and I hope you guys understand that I'm not doing this because I'm trying to disrupt the meta or anything like that. I'm doing this because I want people to know that there's like, if you're trying to figure out how to make a build to get into doing dungeons or trials, build for this. Build for these stat values. No matter what role you're playing, build for those stat values so you can have the build necessary to play the content you're trying to do, so you can get the gear and stuff that you want to use for the content you really want to play. Whether you're playing in dungeons, trials, PvP, PvE, Cyrodiil, battlegrounds, wherever, you've got to have the right stuff to be able to do that. And for those wondering about Impin on crit resistance, if you can build for 2k or higher crit resist, you're going to be fine in PvP, because most people don't know that the building for really high crit resist, it doesn't improve your uncrit capabilities. In fact, I think it's like a 2200 crit resist gives you enough crit resist to block 50% critical damage. Anything after that, and I think it drops off. I think you start getting diminished returns, if I remember right. So it's better to build, like, you can go to 3k and not be hit super hard by diminished returns, but 3200 crit resist is as high as you're going to want to go. Anything beyond that, and you're not getting anything from what I'm to understand at all. So, but when it comes to resistances, even, like, if I go in here and I grab, say, my ability here, and I put it on my bar, and I buff my resistances, where do I go? 20,000. Almost 20,000 physical resist. And this is on a healer, guys. Now, why would I do this? Survivability. For when I'm playing solo, or I want to do something else. Now, what if I want to tank? Well, I can go up here and I can grab the Lady Mundustone. Now, am I going to have ungodly resistance here when I'm fully buffed? No. 22 and 24. But now, just imagine if I had a defending fire staff and a defending lightning staff. Then I would have 24 or 25 here and 27 here. So I would have more than enough resistances to tank with this using defending stuff. Or I could just change my monster set to something else that'll give me higher resistances, like Lord Warden. And it'll get me closer to that 32,000. 33 is the cap, 33k is the cap in resistances, but 32,000 is what a lot of people try to build for when it comes to survivability for end game, for tanking. Well, what about your health? Well, I take out of my magic and I put into my stamina, or I put into my health. And people will say, well, it's not going to make you super tanky. I'm going to be just as tanky as any other tank at the same thing. See, and I can only go to 29k health. So I'm really not going to be a really good tank, main tank, but I can main tank dungeons. But when it comes to trials, I'm definitely going to want to off tank with this type of build. But could it be done? Yes. Well, how do you know? The game is designed to have certain stat values that we're supposed to meet and meet the requirements of in order to play the game. Not to be meta, but to play the game. What is necessary to play the game and beat the content. Not what is needed for score runs. Not is needed for... and you could probably get all the achievements with these type of builds. But it's not to be what's needed for score runs or needed for getting this or that. It's, okay, what do I need to do this or to do that or to play this stuff? Well, this is what you need. These are the stat values you're going to need, kind of thing. And it's interesting when I hear people say, well, you clearly don't understand the game's design or structure. I do. I just don't play to play a meta. And I never will, and it's nothing bad, it's just who I am. But yeah, and the other things you can do is, like I said, using tri-stat food. This is what I use when I go to do something that I've never done before. Like, let's say I'm doing a trial for the first time, I will use tri-stat food over dual stat food. And the reason for that is so that way I have more resources for blocking, dodge rolling, breaking free for stamina, and then for magicka I get a little bit more magicka pool, I get a little bit more health pool, so I have greater survivability and stuff. But this way I can play a healer, and I can be a healer as a dragon knight, I can be a healer as a tank, or as a not just a dragon knight, but I can be a healer as a nightblade, as a warden, as a, you know, and it's cool to watch, like, the different ways each class plays and does, like, which way they're best at being healer or tank or whatever. Because there's so many different options. There's so many different ways to do this. And if you guys are wondering why I put molten armor or magma shell, this will reduce the damage I take by 3% of my max health. And it deals flame damage to nearby enemies, but also when I activate it, it gives my nearby allies a shield for 116% of their max health for 10 seconds. So it's like an uber shield. It's almost as good as putting this on the bar. And that's a really great shield. I also have a purge, which I can cleanse negative effects if I need to. I can put it on the back bar. Oops. So I can help my allies out with getting rid of negative effects. If I'm using my Witch Mother's Potent Brew, I'm going to have higher recovery. So every time I use my Resto Staff, let me burn through some magicka real quick, and I'll show you guys why I put into stam recovery and not mag recovery, or synasty. Because, see, I'm still getting like 5k resources back almost. Or over 4k resources back every time I heavy attack with my Resto Staff. So I really don't need it. And I haven't even used a potion yet, so I'm just pretending I'm healing in a group. You know, going through resources and stuff. And that's without using potions. As soon as you throw a potion in there, now I can go up to 2430 recovery, and I have a 707 stamina recovery. So, like, my resources and stamina will grow back pretty quickly. Because I'm getting 707 stamina every 2 seconds. So I can block more, bash more, I can dodge roll, and I can break free. And that's the other reason why I build the way I do when it comes to the stats and things. So, but that's pretty much it for the video, guys. I hope that this was informative. I hope that you guys understand why I made it. And this is an updated version to the original 2032 thing I did a long time ago. So, but that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Hope you guys like it. If you did, you guys know what's coming next. Go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.